You made your choice. Now live with the consequences.
The notification ping at 11:47 p.m. should have been my first warning. I was sprawled on our sagging couch, laptop balanced on my knees, pretending to review engineering specs while Sandra graded papers at the kitchen table. The blue glow of Facebook lit up my screen, and there it was. My wife's latest post, bold as brass for all our friends to see. Single until someone proves they deserve me hash. Know your worth hash, new chapter. I stared at the words until they burned into my retinas. 43 likes already, comments rolling in from her college colleagues, her book club friends, even my own cousin Jennifer, cheering her on with fire emojis. My throat went dry as sandpaper. Sandra was still married to me, last I checked. We'd had our problems. What couple didn't after 5 years? But this was news to me. I glanced over at her, hunched over student essays with her red correction pen, looking perfectly domestic in her oversized sweater and reading glasses. My fingers moved before my brain caught up. I typed in the comment box. Good luck with that, Sandra. Hope you find what you're looking for. Then I clicked on my own relationship status and changed it from married to Sandra Foster to single and loving it. I tagged her in the update. The response was immediate. Her post vanished from my timeline like it had never existed. Her laptop snapped shut with a sharp crack that made me flinch. What the heck is wrong with you, Alex? Sandra's voice cut through the silence like a blade. She was standing now, all 5'6" of her trembling with rage, her dark hair falling loose from its ponytail. I kept my voice level, though my heart was hammering. Just following your lead, sweetheart. Figured if you were announcing your availability to the world, I should update my status too. It was a mistake. I was trying to share an inspirational quote and clicked the wrong thing. Her cheeks flushed red, the way they always did when she was lying. Funny how mistakes always seem to reveal the truth. I closed my laptop and stood up, matching her energy. 43 likes in 20 minutes is pretty impressive for an accident. Sandra's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. You're being paranoid and controlling. This is exactly why... She stopped herself, but the damage was done. Why what, Sandra? Why you're thinking about being single? Why you've been working late every Tuesday and Thursday? Why you guard your phone like it contains state secrets? I'm going to bed. She turned on her heel, but I wasn't done. Sweet dreams, honey. Try not to post about it. She slammed the bedroom door so hard that our wedding photo fell off the hallway wall, the glass cracking right down the middle between our smiling faces. I picked up the broken frame, studying our younger selves. We'd looked so happy at the courthouse that day, me in my only good suit and Sandra in a simple white dress she'd bought on sale. When had that happiness curdled into whatever this was? My phone buzzed. A text from our neighbor, Mrs. Zimmer. Saw your Facebook update, dear. About time. Sandra's been having a lot of young visitors lately when you were at work. Thought you should know. The pieces started clicking together like a machine I was finally learning to operate. Sandra's sudden interest in professional development meetings, her new workout routine, the way she'd started doing her makeup just to go to the grocery store. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and settled back on the couch. If Sandra wanted to play games, I'd learned from the best. 5 years of marriage to a woman who could manipulate a conversation better than a trial lawyer had taught me a few tricks. The hunt was just beginning. The next morning, Sandra left for campus without a word, her coffee mug abandoned on the counter with lipstick stains around the rim. I waited until her Honda disappeared around the corner before I made my move. Sandra had always been careless with passwords. She used the same one for everything, a combination of her favorite Emily Dickinson poem and the year we met. W1 there, 1ang 2018, got me into her laptop on the first try. Her desktop was organized with the same obsessive precision she brought to everything else. Folders labeled lesson plans, research, personal, and miscellaneous. I clicked on personal first, my pulse quickening. What I found made my stomach drop to my shoes. Screenshots of text conversations, saved in a subfolder labeled C. The messages went back 3 months, starting innocent enough. Discussions about assignments and office hours. But they'd evolved into something that made my skin crawl. You're so much more mature than guys my age, from someone named Caleb. You make me feel young again, Sandra had replied. My husband treats me like a roommate he barely tolerates. The messages got progressively more explicit. Photos I recognized from our bedroom, Sandra posing in lingerie I'd bought her for our anniversary. My anniversary gift shared with some college kid who probably wasn't old enough to legally drink. Can't wait to show you what a real woman feels like, she'd written just last week. I screenshotted everything, my hands shaking with a rage so pure it felt like electricity in my veins. This wasn't just cheating. It was humiliation with a paper trail. My phone rang, making me jump. Elliot's name flashed on the screen. "You sound like heck," he said when I answered. Elliot Morrison had been my best friend since high school, back when we'd both thought we'd conquer the world with our bare hands. Now he owned a small gym downtown and served as the unofficial therapist for half the town's divorced men. "Sandra's cheating," I said without preamble, "with one of her students." A long pause. "You sure?" "I'm looking at their messages right now. Kid's name is Caleb. She's been playing house with him for months." "Jesus, Alex, what are you going to do?" I stared at the screen at my wife's betrayal laid out in neat digital rows. "I'm going to make sure she regrets it." "Don't do anything stupid, man. Think about the divorce proceedings." "Screw the divorce proceedings. She wants to humiliate me?" Two can play that game. After I hung up, I spent another hour documenting everything. Bank statements showing charges at restaurants I'd never been to. Credit card receipts from Victoria's secret and expensive hotels. A whole secret life funded by our joint account. But the real gold mine was in her email. Sandra had been corresponding with Dr. Lila Grant, her department colleague, about the situation. "I know it's risky," Sandra had written, "but Caleb makes me feel alive again. Alex has gotten so boring, so predictable. All he cares about is his job and those stupid car projects in the garage." Dr. Grant's response was even better. "Just be careful, honey. The administration doesn't look kindly on faculty-student relationships. And if Alex finds out—" "Alex won't find out," Sandra had replied. "He's too wrapped up in his own world to notice what's happening in mine." I printed everything, organized it in a manila folder, and tucked it into my work bag. Sandra thought I was too boring to notice. She was about to learn how wrong she could be. That afternoon, I drove to campus and parked across from the English building. I didn't have to wait long. At 3:15, Sandra emerged from the brick building with a tall, lean kid who looked like he'd stepped out of a catalog for expensive workout gear. He had the kind of effortless confidence that came from being young, handsome, and stupid enough to think the world owed him something. They walked close together, not quite touching, but with the kind of intimacy that screamed relationship to anyone paying attention. When they reached the parking lot, he grabbed her hand and pulled her against him for a kiss that lasted way too long for a teacher-student conference. I took photos with my phone, zooming in on their faces. Caleb Dunn, according to the student directory I'd looked up. 22 years old, junior English major, address listed as 47 Oak Street, apartment 3B. Time for a little reconnaissance. Oak Street was the kind of neighborhood where college kids went to pretend they were adults. Crumbling Victorian houses carved up into studio apartments, littered with empty beer bottles and dreams that would never quite pan out. Number 47 was a 3-story disaster painted an optimistic yellow that had faded to the color of old mustard. Caleb's beat-up Toyota Corolla sat in the driveway, covered in bumper stickers advertising bands I'd never heard of and political opinions he probably couldn't defend in a real debate. I parked down the block and waited. At 7:30, Caleb emerged wearing gym clothes and carrying a duffel bag. He jogged down the street toward downtown, probably heading to the campus fitness center. Perfect. I'd brought supplies, a tube of superglue, a can of spray paint, and a box of protections I'd bought at the gas station with cash. The protections were Elliot's idea, delivered with a grin that reminded me why we'd been friends for 15 years. "If you're going to send a message," he'd said, "make sure it's one he'll never forget." I worked quickly and quietly. The superglue went into his car door locks, all 4 of them. The spray paint spelled out "cheater" across his windshield in bold red letters. The protections I scattered across his hood and taped to his windows, along with a note written in block letters, "Professor's pet needs protection." It was juvenile, maybe, but satisfying in a way that surprised me. For months, I'd felt powerless, watching my marriage disintegrate without understanding why. Now I was taking action, fighting back against the people who'd made me a fool. I was back home by 9 p.m., sitting on the couch with a beer when Sandra walked through the door. She looked flushed and disheveled, her hair messed up in a way that told me exactly where she'd been. "How was your evening?" I asked, not looking up from the TV. "Fine. Just grading papers at the office." She avoided my eyes, heading straight for the kitchen. Must have been some intense grading. "Your shirt's buttoned wrong." Sandra's hand flew to her blouse, and I saw her face go pale in the reflection of the microwave door. I spilled coffee and had to change." "In the office?" "In the bathroom. I keep spare clothes in my desk. The lies came so easily to her, like she'd been practicing. Maybe she had been. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. I know it was you, a-hole. This isn't over. I showed Sandra the message. Weird. Some kid thinks I did something to his car. You wouldn't happen to know anyone who drives a beat-up Toyota, would you? The color drained from her face completely. No. Why would I? Just curious. Probably some case of mistaken identity. I deleted the message and went back to my beer. By the way, I'm thinking of taking up photography as a hobby. Maybe get some candid shots around town. You never know what interesting things you might capture. Sandra muttered something about taking a shower and disappeared upstairs. I heard the water running and knew she was probably texting Caleb, trying to figure out what I knew and what I was planning to do about it. Let her wonder. The real fun was just getting started. The Rusty Anchor was the kind of bar where college professors went to pretend they were still young, and townies went to forget they were getting old. The lighting was dim enough to hide the stains on the carpet, and the jukebox hadn't been updated since the Clinton administration. I found Dr. Lila Grant holding court at the bar, 3 drinks deep and complaining loudly about the state of modern education to anyone within earshot. She was a thin, sharp-faced woman in her 50s who'd never married and seemed to resent anyone who had. "Alex Foster," she called out when she spotted me. "What brings you to our little den of academic despair?" "Just needed a drink." I slid onto the bar stool next to her and ordered a bourbon. "Rough day. Tell me about it." "These students get more entitled every year, present company excluded, of course." She gestured vaguely toward a table in the corner where a group of young guys were playing pool and talking too loud. I recognized one of them from my campus surveillance. Arnold something, one of Caleb's drinking buddies. He was regaling his friends with a story that involved a lot of hand gestures and crude laughter. "Speaking of entitled students," I said carefully, "Sandra mentioned she's been having trouble with one of hers." "Kid named Caleb?" Lila's expression shifted, becoming guarded. "What kind of trouble?" "Oh, inappropriate behavior, making her uncomfortable." I took a sip of bourbon and watched her reaction. "She's been stressed about it for weeks." "That's interesting." Lila finished her drink and signaled for another. "Because from what I've observed, Sandra seems quite comfortable with young Mr. Dunn." "What do you mean?" She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that reeked of gin and gossip. "I mean, I've seen them together, Alex. In her office after hours, door closed, blinds drawn. That's not how you handle a problem student." My grip tightened on my glass. "How long has this been going on?" "Months." I tried to warn her. Faculty-student relationships are a guaranteed way to destroy your career, but Sandra always thinks she's smarter than the rules. Lila's words were slurring slightly, but her eyes were sharp with malice. "She's done this before, back at her previous school. Why do you think she ended up at a second-tier college in Maine instead of somewhere prestigious?" The information hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't Sandra's first affair with a student. It was a pattern. I'd been married to a predator and never known it. "I should go," I said, standing up. "Alex." Lila grabbed my arm. "I'm sorry. I thought you knew." "I'm learning a lot of things lately." I was heading for the door when Arnold's voice carried across the room. "Caleb's been bragging about nailing his English professor. Dude's got photos and everything. Says she's teaching him way more than Shakespeare, if you know what I mean." The kids' friends erupted in laughter, and something inside me snapped. I walked over to their table, my footsteps loud in the sudden quiet that fell over the bar. "Are you talking about Professor Foster?" I asked Arnold. He looked up at me with the cocky grin of someone too young and too drunk to recognize danger. "Yeah, man, you know her. Hot piece of A for an older chick. She's my wife." The grin vanished. Arnold's friends suddenly found their drinks very interesting, leaving him to face me alone. "Oh, crap! Dude, I didn't know." "What photos?" My voice was deadly quiet. I don't... Caleb just said. I leaned down until we were eye to eye. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call your friend Caleb and tell him that if any photos of my wife end up online, I'm going to hold you personally responsible. Understood?" Arnold nodded frantically. "Yeah, man, absolutely. I'll talk to him right now." Good boy. I left him fumbling for his phone and walked out into the night air. My hands were shaking with adrenaline and rage, but for the first time in months, I felt like I was in control. Sandra wanted to play with college boys? Fine. But she'd forgotten that I wasn't a college boy anymore. I was a grown man with nothing left to lose and a very good memory for grudges. Time to remind her what that meant. I got home to find Sandra pacing the living room like a caged animal, her phone pressed to her ear. She ended the call abruptly when she saw me. "We need to talk," she said. "I'm listening." "Someone vandalized Caleb's car last night. Spray paint, glue in the locks, disgusting things taped all over it." Her voice was steady, but I could see the fear in her eyes. "He thinks you did it." "Smart kid. What gave me away?" Sandra's composure cracked. "Alex, this has to stop. You're acting crazy." "I'm acting crazy?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Sandra, you've been screwing a student for 3 months, using our money to buy him presents and posting about being single on social media. But I'm the crazy one for objecting." "How did you—" She stopped herself, but it was too late. "Your laptop password is still the same Emily Dickinson quote from when we met. You always said I didn't pay attention to poetry, but I remember everything you've ever told me." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots I'd taken, including these conversations about what a boring, predictable husband I am. Sandra sank onto the couch, her face white. "Alex, I can explain—" "Can you explain this too?" I showed her the photos from the campus parking lot. Sandra and Caleb locked in their passionate embrace. "Or how about the hotel receipts? The restaurant charges? The fact that, according to Dr. Grant, this isn't your first time playing teacher-student games?" "Lila told you that?" Sandra's voice rose to a near shriek. "That bitter old hag is lying." "Is she? Because it would explain a lot about why we moved here so suddenly. About why you never talk about your previous job. About why you flinched every time I suggested visiting your old colleagues." Sandra buried her face in her hands. When she looked up, there were tears in her eyes, but I felt nothing. The woman I'd married wouldn't have done this. This person was a stranger wearing Sandra's face. "I never meant for it to happen," she whispered. "Caleb was just— he made me feel special, desired. You've been so distant lately, so wrapped up in work. So it's my fault." "No, that's not what I meant." She reached for me, but I stepped back. "Alex, please, we can work through this. I'll end it with Caleb. We can go to counseling." "You want to end it? Fine. Call him right now." "What?" "Call Caleb. Tell him it's over. Do it right now, in front of me." Sandra's hands shook as she dialed. I could hear the phone ringing on speaker. "Sandra." Caleb's voice was young and eager. "Hey, babe. I was just thinking about you." "Caleb, we need to talk. This thing between us, it has to stop." A pause. "What are you talking about? Did your husband find out?" Sandra glanced at me, then looked away. "Yes, he knows everything." "So, you said you were going to leave him anyway. You said we were going to be together." The words hit me like a physical blow. Sandra had been planning to leave me for this kid. Our entire marriage, everything we'd built together, was just something she was ready to discard for a few months of excitement. It's complicated, Caleb." "It's not complicated." His voice was getting louder, more petulant. "You love me! You said you loved me!" "I know, but nothing. If you don't leave him, I'm going to tell everyone about us." "The whole school, your husband's friends, everyone. I've got photos, Sandra. I've got proof." Sandra's face went ashen. "Caleb, please don't." The line went dead. Sandra stared at the phone like it might bite her. "Well," I said. "That went well." "Alex, he's just upset. He won't really what? Destroy your career? Humiliate both of us?" "Sandra, you're not dealing with a mature adult here. You're dealing with a spoiled child who's about to throw a tantrum because he can't have his favorite toy." Sandra started crying in earnest now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "What am I going to do?" "We," I said, "are going to fix this, but we're going to do it my way." The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to campus with a manila folder full of evidence and a plan that would either save my marriage or end it spectacularly. My first stop was the administration building, where I requested a meeting with Dean Patricia Holloway. She was a stern woman in her 60s who ran the English department like a military operation and had zero tolerance for scandal. "Mr. Foster," she said, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. "What can I do for you?" "I need to report an inappropriate relationship between a faculty member and a student." Her expression didn't change, but I saw her shoulders tense. "That's a serious accusation. It's a serious situation." I opened my folder and spread the evidence across her desk. Text messages, photos, hotel receipts, bank statements. My wife, Professor Sandra Foster, has been having an affair with one of her students, Caleb Dunn, for the past 3 months. Dean Holloway studied the documents with the careful attention of someone who dealt with this kind of mess before. This is comprehensive. Caleb is now threatening to release intimate photos of my wife unless she leaves me for him. I thought the administration should know before this becomes a public scandal. You're doing the right thing, Mr. Foster. We'll launch an immediate investigation. She gathered the papers into a neat stack. I assume you'll be filing for divorce? That depends on my wife. But either way, I won't let some entitled kid destroy her career just because he can't handle rejection. It was a lie, of course. I didn't care in the slightest about protecting Sandra's career. But I needed Dean Holloway to see me as the wronged husband trying to do the right thing, not the vengeful spouse looking for payback. My second stop was Caleb's apartment. I found him in the parking lot, staring at his vandalized car and talking on the phone. "Don't care what it costs to fix," he was saying. "Just get it done today." He saw me approaching and ended the call. Up close, he was even younger looking than in the photos, with the kind of smooth, unmarked face that screamed privilege and inexperience. "You've got some balls showing up here," he said, trying to sound tough. "We need to talk." "I've got nothing to say to you, old man." "Then listen." I stepped closer, using my height advantage to crowd him against his car. "I just came from the dean's office. I turned over everything, your texts, your photos, your threats. By tomorrow you'll be expelled, and Sandra will be fired." His cocky expression faltered. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Check your student email in about an hour. I bet you'll find a very interesting message from the administration." Caleb's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and I saw his face go pale. Probably Arnold, warning him that word was getting around campus about the investigation. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to delete every photo, every message, every piece of evidence that my wife ever existed. You're going to transfer to another school, preferably in another state. And if I ever see you near Sandra again, I'll make sure the whole internet knows exactly what kind of predator you are." "Predator? She came onto me." "You're 22 years old. She's your professor. Who do you think people are going to believe?" Caleb's tough guy act crumbled completely. "This is insane. I love her." "No, you don't. You love the idea of her. You love the thrill of sleeping with an older woman, the power of making a married woman cheat on her husband. But you don't love Sandra, and you sure as heck don't know what love actually means." I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd taken that morning. Sandra, sitting at our kitchen table in her bathrobe, looking older and more tired than I'd ever seen her. "This is what your love has done to her. She's terrified, humiliated, and probably going to lose everything she's worked for. Still feel like a conquering hero?" Caleb stared at the photo, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "What do you want from me?" he asked quietly. "I want you gone. Today. Pack your stuff, withdraw from school, and disappear. If you do that, I might be able to convince the dean that this was all a misunderstanding. And if I don't, then you'll find out exactly how creative I can get when someone threatens my family." I left him standing there, looking lost and young, and finally understanding that actions have consequences. The kid had thought he was playing an adult game, but he'd been outmatched from the start. My final stop was the Rusty Anchor, where I found Elliot setting up for the evening crowd. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Phase 1 is complete. Sandra's lover is about to become Sandra's problem, and the administration is going to make sure neither of them forgets it." "And Sandra?" I thought about my wife, probably sitting at home right now, waiting to see if her world was going to implode. Sandra gets to choose. She can try to salvage our marriage, or she can deal with the consequences of her choices alone. What are you hoping for? Honestly, I don't know anymore. But whatever happens, it's going to be on my terms. Elliot poured me a bourbon and raised his own glass. "To getting even. To getting justice," I corrected. "There's a difference." I got home to find Sandra's car in the driveway, and every light in the house blazing. She met me at the door, her face streaked with tears and her hands shaking. "They suspended me," she said without preamble. "Pending a full investigation. They're talking about termination, Alex. Criminal charges. They want to know if there were other students." "Were there?" She flinched like I'd slapped her. "No, just Caleb." "Just Caleb," I repeated. "Like that makes it better." "The dean said you came forward, that you turned in evidence." Sandra's voice was hollow, defeated. Why would you do that? You've destroyed both of us. I've destroyed us. I set down my keys and looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in months. Sandra, you've been cheating on me with a student. You used our joint account to fund your affair. You were planning to leave me for a kid who's barely old enough to rent a car, and somehow I'm the one who destroyed us? You could have come to me first. We could have handled this privately. Like you handled it privately when you posted about being single on Facebook? When you told your lover that I was boring and predictable? When you let him take photos of you in lingerie I bought you? Sandra crumpled onto the couch, sobbing. I know I made mistakes. Mistakes? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Sandra, cheating is a mistake. Having an affair with a student is a career-ending catastrophe, and threatening to leave your husband for someone who could be your son isn't a mistake. It's a complete break from reality. I was confused. I felt trapped, unappreciated. So you decided to blow up both our lives instead of talking to me about it? She looked up at me through her tears. Would you have listened? The question stopped me cold. Would I have listened? Had I been so wrapped up in work, so comfortable in our routine, that I'd missed the signs of Sandra's unhappiness? I guess we'll never know, I said finally. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I'm leaving town tonight. Deleted everything like you said, I'm sorry. I showed Sandra the message. Your boyfriend's running away. Apparently the reality of consequences was too much for him. He's not my boyfriend, Sandra whispered. What was he then? She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. A fantasy, a stupid, selfish fantasy that I thought would make me feel young again. And was it worth it? Was 3 months of feeling young worth destroying 5 years of marriage? No. She looked up at me, and for the first time since this whole mess started, I saw genuine remorse in her eyes. Alex, I know I don't deserve it, but is there any way we can fix this? I sat down across from her, suddenly exhausted. I don't know, Sandra. I honestly don't know. The dean said if I resigned quietly, they might not press charges. I could probably find work at a community college somewhere, start over. Is that what you want? To start over? I want to start over with you. If you'll let me. I studied her face, looking for signs of deception, for the calculating expression I'd learned to recognize over the past few days. But all I saw was a broken woman who'd finally realized the cost of her choices. It would mean counseling, I said. Real counseling, not just going through the motions. Yes, it would mean complete honesty. No more secrets, no more lies, no more private conversations with colleagues about what a disappointing husband I am. I understand. And it would mean accepting that things between us will never be the same. I'll never trust you the way I did before. That innocence is gone forever. Sandra nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know. I'm so sorry, Alex. I'm so sorry. I looked around our living room, at the life we'd built together. The bookshelf Sandra had insisted on painting bright yellow, the coffee table I'd built from reclaimed wood, the wedding photo I'd never gotten around to fixing, still lying on the side table with its cracked glass. We'll try, I said finally. But Sandra, if you ever, and I mean ever, betray me like this again, I won't just destroy your career. I'll destroy everything you care about, and I'll do it so thoroughly that you'll spend the rest of your life wishing you'd never met me. She shivered at the ice in my voice. I understand. Good. Now pack a bag. We're going to stay at a hotel tonight while we figure out our next move. I can't sleep in this house until we've had time to decide what we're really doing here. As Sandra went upstairs to pack, I picked up our broken wedding photo and studied it one more time. The couple in that picture had been naive, optimistic, certain that love would be enough to overcome any obstacle. They'd been wrong about a lot of things, but maybe, just maybe, they'd been right about the important ones. I tucked the photo into my jacket pocket. Tomorrow, I'd get the glass replaced. Not because I believed we could go back to who we were, but because I wanted to remember how far we'd fallen and how hard we'd have to work to build something new from the wreckage. Sandra came downstairs with a small suitcase, looking lost and uncertain. Ready? I took her bag and headed for the door. Let's go see if we can figure out how to be married to each other again. As we drove toward downtown, Sandra reached over and took my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't squeeze back either. Trust, I'd learned, wasn't something you could rebuild with a single gesture. But maybe it was something you could earn back, one honest conversation at a time. The hotel room was small and impersonal, with 2 double beds and a view of the parking lot. Sandra sat on one bed, I sat on the other, And we talked until dawn about everything we'd done wrong and everything we might do right. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. And sometimes a beginning is enough.